was like crashing in my brain. But you look good. Sandy, you even look so good. You look great. Gail, I remember, gets the phone call, and she's on the phone with a top producer, Dr. Sanjay Gupta's #1 top producer that works with Sanjay.
Welcome to the Invisible InCourage Show, a production of the Invisible Disabilities Association. Join us as we explore the stories and topics shaping the lives of those with invisible disabilities and all who support them. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Invisible InCourage Show, brought to you by the Invisible Disabilities Association. Our goal is to change the way the world sees disabilities. I'm Wayne Cannell, founder and CEO of IDA, and I'll be your host today. We are very excited to have Sandy Halperin join us on the show today. Hi, Sandy.
Good morning. Hi, everybody.
It's so great to see you. Let's jump right in. So, growing up, what inspired you to pursue schooling and a career in dentistry?
Well, as I grew up, my dad had a neighborhood pharmacy, the drugstore they called it in those days, and I became familiar with aspects of medicine even during that time, because pharmacists, or during that time, he would sometimes act as a physician. I mean, if someone would come in, their physician or doc wasn't home or around, went on vacation, and he would say, well, take this, take that. And, I don't know how much you maybe even prescribed, I can't remember, but it was like, someone had an upset stomach, here, well, take this, or take this Coke syrup, or, or if the physician wasn't around for the refill of the prescription. In those days, he would often just provide the medication. So when your physician comes back, we'll get a prescription. In today's world, if you don't have a prescription right on that day that it's over, you can't even get the medication. So
why dentistry?
That's right. Thank you. I enjoyed biology and aspects of it, and even the strange story was, in high school, I wasn't allowed to take biology in my high school class, because biology, during those, they talked about female organs and female, and they didn't only allow girls to take the class. That really aggravated me. But when I got to college and I majored in biology, my brother was in dental school. I had another brother who was in medical school, and I visited my brother Mark at dental school, at his dental school, New York University, and I was, inspired by the work of taking care of someone's oral health, and that's where I got involved. In fact, during my last year of college, I started reading dental journals daily, a year before I even began dental school. And it sort of like put me at a level of, it's maybe different than other students entering dental school at that point. But I was inspired by the aspect of caring for someone and caring for their oral health, and which is often it's sometimes upsetting to me that many healthcare providers don't think of the oral cavity as part of the human body. There's little healthcare provided for some dental work and dental care, but the mouth and the oral cavity is a major part of the human body, just as, there are ophthalmologists just taking care of the eyes, and ear, nose, and throat. So there's the same way there's dentists taking care of.
Well, absolutely. I've also read, that when dentistry actually kind of came on the scene, people's health dramatically started to improve, right? Because they didn't take care of it, and it's just so impacting there. So you got into dentistry, and I know you practiced it, and you taught it. So when did you start to notice some health challenges, and did that happen during that time when you were practicing?
Well, there are two aspects, and excuse me if I lose my train of thought, which could you ask me the question one more time?
Yeah. So when you were practicing or teaching dentistry, what were some of the early health challenges that you faced?
Well, the first was the dental aerosol, where the when you drill on someone's teeth, the aerosol contains a lot, trillions, millions, trillions. I don't know the number. I used to know that of bacteria and particulate matter that's aerosolized, and I would breathe that in, and it caused ultimately some life-threatening breathing issues. I mean, where I was literally on the ground without an airway, and actually saying, I am going to die, and I'm not going to see my kids grow up. It was really life-threatening and pretty bad. And that was, but I then continued in dentistry after that time for several more years in clinical dentistry. I did other aspects of dentistry after that, non-clinical. I'm sorry, ask me the question one more time, because there's
Did you start teaching because of that? Were you doing some teaching as well?
Well, when I graduated from my specialty program in prosthodontics, crowns, bridges, dentures, I then went to University of Texas and taught there for 2.5/3 years. And then I saw that there was an opening to teach at Harvard, and I was accepted to teach at Harvard, and I was the not the department chairman, but I basically led virtually all of the prosthodontic courses for both dental students and postgraduate students at there also. So I not only taught, but I had my own faculty private practice, which was a day and a half a week at the school. So, and I did some research, clinical kind of research things on patients. So I was wonderful that I was able to both teach and seeing literally thousands of patients, research, and the practice.
So
I did that.
So these health issues that you challenged, did it impact your career as a dentist?
I'm sorry. I missed. Then what happened after I had to leave clinical dentistry because of my breathing problems, which is, I mean, I'm going through the last 6 months of some pretty major bronchial issues right now. And please excuse me as I forget as I'm speaking. It's going on right now.
That's okay.
So it's important for me to say that in one of my roles after the clinical dentistry, I was working at the Florida Department of Health as a consultant, but the dentist who would be the first person basically who would see complaints against dentists that would come in from patients. There would be 1,000, 1,200 a year, let's say, but they would hit my desk first, the file. And I was the one who would review the case and write up a report, so to speak, about whether that dentist was not practicing within the standard of care, or their records aren't accurate, or they, things like extracting the wrong tooth or drilling on teeth that didn't need drilling. Well, I then wrote up the report, and I would pass it on to the attorneys, who would then handle it from that point. Before I would again see it at some point potentially, but they would then handle it by getting another opinion on the outside in addition to mine. But I forget what I'm saying. Oh boy. So when I was reading the cases, it got to the point when I would read a case file could be anywhere between 10 to 15 pages to 200 pages. I'd have to go through the entire case and write up the report. I would do that. And very often, right after I would do it, one of the attorneys would come into my office and say, Sandy, can we go over that case of such and such? And right after I had done it, I didn't remember anything about the case, but the name of the dentist. I knew nothing. It was like a blank. And I said to them, at that point I was hiding it, and I said, listen, I'll come to your office and we'll talk about it in your office. Well, so then I opened the file up, I saw the name, and I could open up and have the file in front of me and have the report of what I wrote, and I was then able to converse with the attorney. But it got to the point where it was just every day, all day night. That's when I went to see my primary care physician and other places and neurologists, and it was like, okay, Sandy, you've got some early stage dementia.
Right. So in 2010, along those lines, so in 2010, you were diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, right?
Right. Yeah. Then I prefer to call it dementia because in my case, there's maybe other brain issues and things going on that may not be. There's people talk about there's like 100 kinds of dementia, 120 kinds of different dementia. There's a lot of kinds of dementia, and you go through. Yeah, I mean the symptoms can be the same, like maybe what I'm going through, but someone who has dementia is with that one person has dementia. It's like other illnesses. People experience it in different ways. I want those that are viewing to know that, yeah, I'm experiencing not just the dementia, but at the same time, I've been on a feeding tube for probably getting close to 7 years because of surgery gone bad that damaged some muscles, nerves in my neck. So it's difficult. I can't eat. I can't swallow food. I'm on daily oral chemotherapy for a blood disorder, and I've got significant lung and bronchial issues. But the people that are watching me right now, they can't see what I'm experiencing now. It's invisible, but right. I'm right now, my chest is raw. It feels uncomfortable.
Well, let's go back a little bit.
So I'm just explaining.
Yeah. So how did you navigate, right? So with the dementia, I mean, it was in 2010. I mean, here we are, a decade and a half later. So, how did you navigate that? And I'm curious, how to come about that you were actually featured in a story by Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN. I mean, how did that all come about, and kind of what was that impact on your family? I mean, what did that all look like as you were diagnosed with this?
Well, it's interesting. I'll have to stay on track, and I may have to come back to some of the things. Okay, so I didn't want to. My integrity. Am I talking to you? If I said something to you right now today that wasn't accurate, I'd have to correct it immediately or call you up. It's just my nature, the way I live my life. When I was diagnosed, my physician said to me, you can't just sit home or whatever. And she mentioned, you want to get out and volunteer. Well, true to my nature, in a sense, I can't do something halfway. I mean, I said, okay, you want to do something, you want to help, and I wanted to help other people and get people working together with regards to dementia out of their silos. Anyhow, I got onto LinkedIn and I emailed or messaged like crazy the people at, let's say, CNN. And ultimately, I don't know how long after, let's say 6 months of my doing this, Gail, I remember, gets the phone call, and she's on the phone with a top producer, Dr. Sanjay Gupta's #1 top producer that works with Sanjay. And they talked to me, and that's how it got involved with Dr. Gupta to come here to visit with me several times, and with my family, and how I was able to live and be productive living with dementia. And I can even say that now, with regards to invisible disabilities, it's like I take that serious. I want that message. I am so eager to have the message of what I'm experiencing, that millions of other people that are living with invisible disabilities are experiencing, and it's got to come out of the shadows into the mainstream media big time. And I'm talking about the way that Dr. Sanjay Gupta spoke and did segments about the dementia. I see the invisible disabilities that same way. It's got to be in a huge way out there because too many people are struggling and suffering. It just, in fact, the other day, there I am with a fever still every day, and my chest and things are not healing. I go out. I don't know. I was dumping the garbage or whatever down the hall of where we live in our apartment, or was downstairs in the lobby. That was in the lobby. I was with my wife, and sure enough, someone comes up. Oh, Sandy, I've never seen you look so good, or something. I'm making up those words, and it was like, oh, don't do this to me. I mean, what do I say? Oh, thank you. And in my mind, as soon as that person could leave my presence, the better off I would feel, because it was that too much. They're saying how good I look now when they saw me last time. Why didn't they tell me I looked pretty crappy at that time? They just have to tell me now that I look great. What did I look 2 months ago when you saw me?
Well, speaking of that, so let's just go back to that. So, But You Look Good, which is our book that that we wrote originally back in 1998.
That's right, Wayne. And
tell me about you got a hold of the book.
That book flashed in my mind. It was like crashing in my brain. But you look good. Sandy, you even look so good. You look great. Go spend an hour in my body, and then we'll talk about how great I look.
Yeah, it's one thing for people to give you a compliment, which we talk about even in the book, because you dress nice, whatever. But it's another thing when they kind of disregarding your story based upon what they say. So you got a copy of the book too, and I've seen your copy of the book. It's full of highlights and sticky notes and everything. And tell me how that book, really impacted you.
In a major way, because back when I was going through my health issues back in the in the 80s and then early 90s, through that whole time, through now. But then I wrote a book that was never published. It was simply self-written, never sent for self-publishing, but it was fully written. And it was called Cut Off My Arm So You Can See. And that's back in, if I pulled out the book, it says 1995 on it. Well, when I saw the Invisible Disabilities on LinkedIn, you and Invisible Disabilities, and I saw the book, I said, oh my goodness, there's like an association, and you, Wayne, like a brother, in saying the same, feeling the same way, and saying some of this that's basically the same feeling. And that really, I forgot the question directly, but just as I'm talking, that really hit my heart. That book, I mean, I couldn't wait to get a copy of it. So I went to Amazon and get a copy, and I started reading the words in there, and I wouldn't necessarily remember the exact words. I would highlight and tag. It was like then an early validation and saying, oh goodness, there's an association, and you and Sherry, you're out there with the book. That meant so much to me. It still does. And that continues to motivate me in being with, an ambassador, a privilege of being an ambassador with the association.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Let's talk a little bit at that in a moment. So I want to talk about a little bit about your journey here. Your wife, Gail, your children, how have they been involved in your journey? Obviously, I mean, I think about through 2010 when you were diagnosed with dementia, but this goes way back with your wife. I know you guys have been married quite a long time. And how has that impacted that whole thing from a family standpoint?
It's been a challenge. I mean, I can speak for Gail. I mean, our anniversary is on March 31st, which is in a couple of days, and it'll be 53 years. And it's funny, Gail always has this joke that she says when we woke up on April 1st, she said to me, April Fools, as a joke. But, she married me knowing of my health issues. and it's been a challenge for her. And not
Well,
easy.
that's amazing, because that's what happened with Sherry and I, right? Sherry's was been living with Lyme disease and MS for over 30 years, and I found out before we got married too, and I married her because, just like you did with Gail, you married a person, an amazing person, and you didn't marry their illness. Now, as well as what Gail is going through that I went through is, you thought you knew what it was going to be as a family, but you really had no idea what it was going to be. And I will tell you, as you talked about your advocacy and speaking and those things, how did that really help you manage through this? Because I think that, I mean, that's what we did. We launched the Invisible Disabilities Association out of Sherry's journey and our journey together. We launched the book, But You'll Look Good. We're exciting. The 25th anniversary edition of the book's coming out real soon here. And so, but it really is, how did that advocacy and that shared experience, life experience with other people help you in your journey as well as them?
Well, it gave me an opportunity to express myself of what I was going through, but I never wanted it to be about me. I wanted it to be where there would be individuals. When I would go speak, there would either be 500, 600, 1,000, 1,200 people in the audience, many of the times that I spoke. And I looked out there and I said to myself, all these individuals and all these groups, yet so many were working in their silos without working together. So for me, I was motivated to see more people working together. In the early days, I was able to speak with some cues and get through the talk. But when it got to the point where I actually literally had to write out everything I would be saying, it was like so many days, weeks of doing it, because now if I got before a group, I would say a sentence. I wouldn't know necessarily the next thing I was going to say, and it wouldn't be, comfortable for me. But during the time that I would advocate, it was my nature to help others. And I never, ever, even though I was offered money, even handed one time like $1,000 check because I spoke, I never took any money. I never took a dime. And there was a friend here who actually financed my way through a big bulk of these talks. And that's the person who just recently passed away about a month ago. And that enabled me to do the speaking and be out there. But this was never, oh, look at me, blah, blah, blah. No, it's about the many millions of people that are living with dementia. But the thing that I want to make clear during this talk with you, that it could be true of Sherry, it could be true, it's true of me. It's not just the one illness, it's the comorbid factors. They may say, oh, this person has Parkinson's. I'm making that up. But yeah, they may have congestive heart failure with it. They may have diabetes. They can have a whole variety of things beyond just the Parkinson's. I may have Parkinson's. So it's looking at the whole individual. And that's what with invisible disabilities, what I'm experiencing and what others are experiencing is that, specifically that. But to explain that to someone, every time someone says, well, how are you feeling? Well, I'm going to go through a list of all these things, or that person, no, but it's challenging.
Well, I think about that, we talk about in the book, we talk about in the organization. What's interesting is I've done IDA now. We just celebrate 30 years here in January 2026. And I do it's all volunteer on top of my full-time job that I have to do. So I get it. The passion it's your passion that helped people and your story. So the journey, it's me journeying with my bride, Sherry, We've been married for over 30 years as well, but it's that journeying and sharing those journeys. It's real life. It's not clinical. It's not, so many statistics. It's about, this is what you go through. If you have an invisible disability, people can't see how they react to you. That's what the book's about, is to help people. They don't know what to say and what to say. It helps them through those things, as I think about that. And so it's been amazing that you weren't necessarily bringing attention to yourself, but your story is what people were moved by. And so, as we met last year, part of it is your persistence. You've been reaching out to me for quite a while, and I'm like, who is this guy? He keeps reaching out to me, and so in 2025, we were blessed to be able to present you with our Invisible No More Perseverance Award. We've been giving awards away since all the way since 2008, and it was an amazing thing to. But how did you feel when all of a sudden you get this email about the letter about the award?
Well, I mean, to say I was honored is to say that mildly. But what it meant to me, and what the book has done for me, and the association has done and continues to do for me, is it was like almost like being my counselor, like my therapist. It validated me that it wasn't just about me, that there's millions of others living with the disease, and there's an association that deals with that, the whole aspect of invisible disabilities. And because of that, I found validation in that, and it helped me feel emotionally much better and much more at ease with the whole variety of issues that I'm challenged with health-wise.
Right. Well, it's the invisible no more, right? That's part of the award. Even it's called the invisible no more, because it really is about, you feel invisible, not just that you have invisible things, right? You feel invisible, feel people don't understand. I think about our 6 pillars that we have, which is to encourage, educate, and connect, right? And to listen, believe, and support. I mean, those are such values. And one of the things you talk about is, we're excited for you to join us as an ambassador, but, after receiving the award, and you talk about holding the baton. So what does that mean, holding the baton? What does it mean to you that you're representing people with invisible disabilities and your impact as an ambassador?
So I hold the baton, but as a whole, I put down the words here that I have a mission in my guts and in my brain, and it's so that's invisible too. But to express it, I feel so strongly that the tipping point, it's beyond the tipping point, for the Invisible Disabilities Association to be on the national stage. And I want to be helpful and to help that take place. And I'm already taking some steps in communicating with some individuals to be on that stage. I'm not saying personally me, that I say, I want to be the one that's talking. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the association to be recognized, because there's the Parkinson Association, the Alzheimer's Association, Multiple Sclerosis Association, and they garner millions, some of the many millions of dollars a year for their associations. But the people that are in those associations have invisible disabilities, but they're not, these people that are giving the millions there aren't giving the millions to the Invisible Disabilities Association. I want to help the association be on par.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about that. Sherry my wife coined that phrase back in 1996 when we launched the organization, right? And that's why everybody knows the term invisible disabilities. the key is we are all around the world. In fact, we had a website back in 97, the year before Google went online, and it went around the world. And people said, hey, you put into words what I've been trying to tell my friends and family, which you totally got that. That's what the book is about. And so the impact around the world has been tremendous on what we're doing. What's happening is, as you kind of talk about, is we come alongside all those different people, right? You think about Alzheimer's and diabetes and MS and Lyme disease and dementia and all those different things. You know, there's these amazing organizations that are providing research and support to people living with those. And we're so excited to partner with them and to uphold them. But you got to go home and live with it. And you got to go home and get people to believe it. And that's what we're about. I call us not a cure of the disease, but a cure of the heart, right? We're that thing that validates what you're going through. And as you mentioned earlier, what if you have all of them? You know, where do you go? What do you get people to understand and people to believe? And so, so that's what we do, is that common human condition of how people are treated, how they're misjudged, they're disregarded, they're invisible. In fact, as an organization, we're not trying to be invisible even, right? You know, that's kind of the thing. We're that you know, kind of that front porch where we say, hey, come in and we'll help you understand what you're going through and how people react to it and how you can interact with relationships and those things better. And you need help with this or that, go to those organizations, get the amazing support you need on your specific thing you're dealing with too.
Well, what I'd like to do, I'm going to make an ask right now as you're talking, because I wrote down right here that my ask is for those people that will be watching this, they're looking at me. There's a lot of things that they can do to be supportive of the Invisible Disabilities Association. One aspect that I would ask for their help in communication with me and you and Sherry and others in the association, the other ambassadors, is to work to become nationally visible on that national stage in a variety of places and sources, and to help and communicate with me, you, Sherry, others at the association to achieve that goal. I think that to me would be one of the happiest things that would happen at this time of my life.
Well, we're very honored, Sandy, as well. Let's just finish up here with a few more questions for you here. You know, what do you wish people understood about your journey, even though they can't see the challenges you face?
Say it again. I'm trying to process.
What do you wish people understood about your journey, even though they can't see the challenges that you're facing?
They can't see them, and I mean, for what do I expect?
What do you want them to know about your journey and you're going through?
Well, like someone else would say, I'm not living an easy life. I can't eat. Yeah. I can sip on water, sip on some hot coffee a little bit, and sip on some juice. My daily chemotherapy for the blood condition. The breathing issues, which I have anyways, they're just not well right now. So that I just want them to, let's say, recognize, like they should with anybody, not just me, that is living with invisible disabilities, to respect them and to support them in their lives. I just would like support and recognition, and not resort to, but you look good.
Yeah,
that's what I
they're
don't
not
want.
alone. They're not alone, right? I mean, that's a big part of it, is that we all have a story of a friend or family member, right? And that's one of the things about invisible disabilities, is that everybody's got a story of a friend or family member, or even themselves, right? What they're going through and their impact on their lives. And your story is not, it's unique to you, but it's not a unique story. It's a story of there's so many people that they're invisible out there, what they're going through. You know, their friends and family may not understand. I mean, it's great that you have a supportive family, A lot of times people don't have a supportive family, right? And they don't believe them and they don't understand it. And we want to help support them through that as a family, right? For them to understand.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I've got to mention before I forget. I don't want to. The other thing that goes on is it's not only when you mention someone, when you mention to someone you have X condition, whatever it might be. It's you there's but you look good. But you know the other thing I found out that almost always occurs, they have an answer for you. They have an answer to say, well, why don't you take this? You take these multivitamins, or no, go see this specialist, or didn't you ask your physician this, or you should do this or that. There's an answer that they feel compelled to give you an answer, but you look good. But let me tell you what you should be doing. And it's almost all it's
yeah, well, so what's interesting about that, I kind of call it the armchair doctor, right? Instead of the armchair quarterback, right? But it really is. We even wrote a pamphlet about that called "Just Take Something," right? For that exact reason, right?
wow.
Because people would say to my wife, "Well, have you tried Tylenol or there's some green drink that?" Well, you know what? That green drink may help some people, and that Tylenol may help some people. But the reality is that every illness is on a spectrum, just like autism talks about being on a spectrum. Every illness is on a spectrum. And when you have multiples, it's on a spectrum. And so the expert is you, the person living with it is the expert. And if you want to learn about it genuinely, build a relationship, ask the person, learn about it. Hey, I don't know. You talked about dementia. Sandy, I don't know. Dementia, I've heard of Alzheimer's. I've heard of dementias. I didn't know there's 120 different kinds of dementias. Can you share with me a little bit about your dementia? Because I'd like to learn that. That's something I'd like to learn. So that's a way that people can really engage, is to understand, to learn. That's one of the things about our ambassadors that we have, is that they're dealing with all kinds of different things in life. And we want them to share what they're going through. So people can say, one, back to the I'm not alone thing, but two, it's great to learn about things. And for people to be invisible no more means that we would understand that there's this huge portion of the population, is over 57% of the population has a chronic illness. 27% of adults have a disability, and a mix of all. There's phobias, there's addictions, there's all these things. It's part of life. It's not something that's not part of life, right? It's been part of your life for most of your adult life, obviously. Same with my bride, right? So it's part of our lives. We need to treat people that's part of it, not that they're some strange person, that they're doing something wrong, that they're who knows what it is, right? It's that it's part of what we're going through in life, right? So I'm going to give you our final question here, because this is called the Invisible InCourage Show, and encourage is spelled I encourage, because it's not about being encouraged, which we do want to do. That's part of our mission, to encourage. But we want to know what gives you courage to make it through the day, not tomorrow or the next day. What is it? What is the thing that gives you courage to make it through the day, Sandy?
Well, without any doubt, it's my family. My wife, we have two daughters, 5 grandchildren, and their being in my presence when I can, or when I'm able to travel to Atlanta where one of my daughter lives, or she's come here to visit with the kids. It's a primary thing. Now, I have to say, and this may be out of context, but I want to make sure I say this. I just want to give a message to my fellow ambassadors at the association. Many, I can't remember, I've been communicating on the new chat area with some of them. It's sort of like, I'm not saying this to act like I'm any leader, or to put any pressure on any ambassador, but I'd like to put a spark, so to speak, underneath all of the ambassadors, to maybe to start communicating in a significant way to help the association get, as I've spoken about maybe too much here, to the forefront on the national aspect, have become well known to a great extent. But I think that like, I don't want to work in my little silo. Look, Sandy's going to go out, I'm going to go right to this person, that person. But I want to be able to communicate with the other ambassadors about maybe what I'm doing and work with them. I don't want to be Sandy Halperin silo, go out and I'll do that, but I'll do my side, but I want to be part of the association, you know, in total, with the leadership of, with you and Sherry and others that are in the leadership team there, but the ambassadors themselves becoming quite active, and me being part of that activity along with them.
Well, that's amazing, Sandy. And many of our ambassadors have already been interviewed on our Invisible InCourage. And so we do encourage people to look at our other podcasts, and we'll talk about that here. So
maybe if we could even have some Zooms where there's those that are interested, we can be and talk with one another and talk about things that we'd like to do together to support the association.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again, Sandy, for your great personal insight and your incredible perseverance. You can learn more about Sandy and about IDA at invisibledisabilities.org. You can find the ambassadors there as well. Also, check out this podcast and more at ida.fm, that's ida.fm, and at ida.tv, which is on our YouTube. You can watch these videos there as well. Together, we can change the way the world sees disabilities. We'll keep talking and writing and sharing until all people with invisible disabilities and illness are invisible no more. Thank you again, Sandy, for joining us.
I so appreciate the chance to be with you. Thank you so much.